your mic on?
Yeah, I think it is.
Okay, I hear you. Okay, some of the questions from last week. Well, someone asked, where can I find a mentor to help develop my psychic abilities safely? So they live in northern Indiana.
Is that that's the list from last week?
From last, yeah.
There's quite a bit of um, teachings out there, but the in developing clairvoyant ability is not the intent. I think the intent is more important than anything. I think you should develop uh, psychic abilities or clairvoyant abilities in order to develop yourself spiritually, uh, not not for any other purpose. But the teachings are there, and I think you really need to study hard if that's something you want to do, and bring about it. The balanced way is to have the right intent. Don't start until you have the right intent. And the right intent is to develop yourself spiritually in order to help humanity to be of service. As far as mentor, I don't know. I mean, I'm here, and I'm sure there's other groups, but I would caution you to, to to have the right intent in developing yourself.
Okay. Are you familiar with the Grand Central Sun?
No, I'm not into all that New Age stuff. Uh, they reassign names and things. I'm not into all that semantics.
Okay. Why should we not pronounce or sound the OM or AUM and just spell it out, just spell out the letters? In what context should we chant or sound the OM or AUM?
That's the law that comes with mantra. That you don't casually speak the mantra, and you don't give the mantra to someone who haven't been initiated in the mantra. That's an ancient law. It's been around for thousands of years. As long as mantra's been given to man, that law was given to man. So that's just the law. And I know a lot of people break it, but they bring a lot of negative karma on you. And when you break such law like mantra, the law of mantra, then the karma is threefold. So I would suggest not to do that. Follow the law.
In what context should we chant or sound the OM or AUM?
You do it in private, or you do it with a group of initiates. You do it for personal and spiritual development, and you do it for service.
Okay. Let's see what else. I don't remember if I asked this question or not. What are your thoughts on destiny versus personal creation of our realities? Will destiny prevail regardless?
You did ask me that.
I did ask that? Okay.
Yeah, it's no one's destiny is concrete. You constantly create your destiny. Now you have some parts of your destiny that will happen because you haven't developed enough understanding and knowledge and motivation to burn that negative karma up. You have some negative karma that is so deeply rooted because you haven't developed yourself mentally, spiritually, that it's going to happen. But it can be changed. So, especially if it's not part of a group destiny.
Okay, and there's a, I guess, question slash statement. Commercial music slash sound and lyrics is keeping us in the lower chakras. I guess they ask, does commercial music and lyrics keep us in the lower chakras?
Yeah, I think if you get enthused or anchored by that, it can. If you pay attention to all of that.
I think that's it.
Yeah, if you want to, yeah. It's open discussion.
So the topic is psychic abilities and being born with them. Can you just? The topic is psychic abilities and being born with them.
And being born with them.
Yes. Can you discuss that?
Like, and what?
Clairvoyance.
I'm saying, and is it possible, you saying, or?
No, I know it's possible, but
Yeah.
what to do with them and how to facilitate them and where to take them, not commercially.
Well, I mean, if a person was born with a certain level of psychic ability, that means they probably gained those psychic abilities in the previous life, and they open their senses up to a level to allow some level of psychic abilities. So the thing is to refine those psychic abilities, to use them in order to grow and learn and be of greater service. If you, a lot of people, they just ignore them, and they just move on in life as though it doesn't exist, you know. And especially being black or African or Caribbean descent, you see that a lot. You see a lot of people are born in for some reason in these regions, and they have this psychic ability. They're born with it, and and they display it among family, but not in the public, and eventually they just ignore it, and that's not good. I think they should nurture it and develop it and try to take it to the next level. But usually, and then a lot of people that's born psychically, as they mature, they lose their abilities or they lose part of their abilities, because they allow certain basic aspects of them to inhibit those senses, and then the senses become sporadic or seasonal in a sense, or it only appear during certain situations. So, but it's a lot to be said about it. But it's something that most people don't talk about. I do know a couple of people that was born. I know throughout my family that was a normal thing, and but I seen some of the best healers are people who were born psychic, and they focus all their healing, all their psychic energy towards healing someone and towards giving counsel. That's not commercializing because you're doing a service. Huh? Well, what they do, they just they don't ask for a fee. They leave it up to the person to give a donation if they feel like and because you don't want to focus on, you don't want the intent to be the wrong thing. But I know some people that made good money doing it just because people gave them donations. But they did a lot of service by healing, by giving advice, as long as they don't let it go too far, too much into the psychic realms and not really, since someone know you have that ability to read the ethers, then you don't want to be taken advantage of where people just come to you for that, because they want to know when the next big good relationship coming, that's something that most people do, and even if you told them, they get angry at you anyway, so and that's something that I think that we need to stay away from. But we can give healing. We can say, well, do this, do that, don't do that, to keep your health in line, to stop certain tragedies, to try to avoid certain tragedies, things like that. And, and teach people to tap into their love energy more instead of their hate energy, and things like that. So what I think that's people who find themselves that have that psychic sight or psychic smell or psychic touch or whatever. I think if they push it towards healing, which is something of service, they can really harness and develop themselves more, so that in their next life they will hold on to those abilities. Because if they don't, they will lose them, going into their next life. hmm Well, that's going to happen. It's just a cycle. But if you give service, if you find yourself giving service, you get a boost of energy back. See, so that's one of the great secrets, Um, you understand what I'm saying? So there's service is a part of a love energy, and a love energy is a creative energy. Is one of the energies of the universe, which binds and hold the universe together, right? And it allows you to exist in time and space, okay? And love energy can pull on itself. It can create from itself. So when you tap into service, you find that the greatest consciousness on Earth and in the solar system and the universe, what do they do 24/7? They give of themselves. So when you elevate your consciousness and elevate your actions towards giving service and loving someone irrespective of who they are, then you pull on a greater energy. Even though you may feel drained physically, there's a greater energy that's coming back to you. It might be within minutes, it might be within hours, or it might be within days, but it's coming. You know, and even if it has to circle the earth 1,000,000 times to get to you, it's coming. And when it comes, you'll feel it, and you'll feel totally inspired. You'll feel totally rejuvenated, okay? Because it's just, that's what the law of attraction is all about. Because you did something in a totally impersonal, unattached way. So therefore, you have put a demand on the universe to connect you and to give back to you so that you can be of greater service. Because now you became a vehicle to allow that to happen. So that's what that is. But it's just because why? You fill yourself up and you gave everything out. You fill yourself up and you gave everything out. But after a while, you'll notice anyone who have did the 12 blessing service or some type of service of healing, they feel drained. But then after the service, it could be a minute or an hour or hours, they feel this tremendous energy come through them. And they can do anything then. So it's just the law. Okay?
This week, I'm reading a question. This week, I read a short article warning about Satanists distributing cursed rosaries in the Philippines to unsuspecting Catholics. If story is real, are these rosaries a real concern or not at all?
I wouldn't know. I mean, it depends on how that person embedded the so-called rosaries with some type of negative energy. So I wouldn't know. If someone knew what they was doing, but it's the intent. I mean, you can take something and bless it. You can take something and bless it and purify that thing. So it depends on how they did it and what they did it with.
Okay. Any discussion of recommendable resource for preparing oneself for readiness of marriage? How to be a supportive spouse? That's not my question.
Are you sure? I don't know. I think I believe that you should get to know a person for at least 5 years before you marry them or go, and spend the rest of your life with them. That's my honest opinion. I think also that if you find a good counselor or spiritual counselor, you should go in with that and have counseling. I do believe in counseling and therapy, and go through, talk about the differences between you and that person, in order to get to the root of your likes and dislikes, so that you can guard against it going forward.
Well, I have a follow-up question to that.
Mm-hmm.
Karma and marriage. After, say, two individuals are married in this life, and then they pass and go over to the other side, how is their marriage reflected on the other side?
What do you mean? Do they stay married on the other side?
Yeah, are they still linked to each other? Are they still?
They probably link with each other for a couple of lifetimes, sometime up to 20, 30 lives. Some of your same family members being your family members for lifetimes. It depends on the lessons that you have to learn and the links you have to break in order to learn those lessons. So, your father may have been your brother in your last life, or your best friend. It's like that. So you'll find yourself in the same circle of people over and over and over and over and over again. It doesn't matter where they're born. They might be born in China, but somehow you and that person meet up again. And you become good friends, or you become linked somewhere. It may just be a 30-minute conversation, but that 30-minute conversation may ring out in your memory, and so that means you linked to that person for 10, 20 years, until you meet again, until you say something again, until you either in this life or the next. But you'll find that you run in the same circle until you rise above all those things, until you accelerate to the next level of consciousness. But usually the person you marry is because you know them for lifetimes. The person you come as a sister, a friend, or whatever, because you knew them for lifetimes. That's how it usually is.
What about, so you don't marry them much, you're just like a sex partner.
Same thing.
Are you going to deal with them again?
Mm-hmm. Especially, especially when especially it depends on how that person is a sex partner. Are you taking advantage of them, or are they taking advantage of you? All those things have to be worked out. Because you just link yourself with that person, and until you work out those differences, you're going to keep running into that person. And you might build other relationships like that, which even creates a greater quagmire because of your character. Mm-hmm. So that's, that's something that might happen as well. Certain things should be private and sacred, especially who you have sex with, I think. Should be a sacred thing. And you should, that's something you shouldn't be doing casually, There should be commitment behind it. If not, you may link yourself with someone that you really don't want to be linked with. Because remember now, orgasms and discharges, that's an aspect of your kundalini, of your consciousness. So you share that with someone, then and you're linked with that person psychically and mentally and physically. You link with them in several different worlds. So as they go through something, you go through something. Your karma is linked, maybe for lifetimes. You know. That's why you find people who go out and engage in a lot of sexual acts. They seem to be frivolous. They can't hold on to nothing. They're not anchored in some part of their life. They may be totally anchored in this, but disanchored in all of this. You know, because they're dealing with so many levels and realms of karma, whether it's good or bad. So it's something you have to be very, very careful about.
How does abortions affect the aborted spirit and the person who committed the act?
Well, the entity made a bad choice. One thing, who wants to come through you, all right? And then the person who did the abortion, they missed the grand opportunity, depending on what the situation was, you know. And you know, that's two things you can say right off, you know, because you had opportunity to be the host of a being into this world, and you missed that opportunity.
But what if that opportunity was to bring a being who had physical, mental, and other ailments?
It's still an opportunity, but it's your decision. Whether it's good or bad, it's your decision.
So if everything happens for the greater good, then how could it be a negative experience? Or is it a negative
Well, I'm
experience?
not saying it's a negative experience. I'm saying it's your choice. Good or bad is your choice. You know, if you want to challenge yourself, do it. If you don't want to challenge yourself, don't do it. But either way, you deal with the karma. It's your karma to deal with. You know, then if you have calculated in your head that you don't have that type of personality to give that person the best life they can have because they are, because the doctors say they will be mentally deficient, then maybe you made a good choice. You know, and then on the other hand, maybe you were selfish. So, but it depends on you. Only you would know that. You know, it's not for someone else to judge. It's only you would know that. And then you can make that up some other type of way. And you might be making it up by not having them to suffer through you. Because now maybe the odds of them finding someone with all the means will open up for them. So you can't say it's bad or good, you know.
Releasing some scars, does that make a void in the aura? Or are there some scars tweaked to be more favorable?
I don't understand what you said. If that
Says when you release some scar from the aura, does it leave a void in the aura? Or does it just tweak the aura, or tweak the samskara?
No, it doesn't. I don't think it makes a void. No. Yeah, because you burn the samskara up. And the energy just raises to another level. It's not like you're releasing the samskara into the world because you don't want to do that. You want to burn that samskara up. and then reuse the energy, elevate the energy to a different level.
Is it necessary to name divas to solicit their guidance?
No. No. And there's a lot of karma connected to trying to contact a diva. I would tell you not to try to do that. Just do what you need to do. Just do what you need to do, and send the energy out there. And the divas work strictly according to karma. Remember, in the book Treatise on Cosmic Fire and the lecture tape that Dr. King gave, he said the same thing as well. Dr. George King, in his lecture tape, The Divic Kingdom, is that if you are able to call a diva into your presence, you must be able to give the diva the necessary energy to carry out the task that was started. If you don't, then the diva have no other choice but to take the energy there that's present there, and carry out the task, because you called the diva to do a task. So usually, if you can't deliver all the energy, then the sum total of your initiation of death is enough energy for the diva to finish the task. So that means you will have to exit this physical world and go into the astral etheric worlds. Give up the energy that's holding you here. So that's why you don't call on divas. Now you can release energy to the world for a particular thing, and the divas will do their job because you name, or what's called, you impregnated a particular energy that you pull down within you, and you release this energy with purpose and direction. So now that's the diva's job, to take the energy and do what it needs to be done. It's not for you to call on the diva, because unless you are conscious, unless you know exactly how much energy to release to that diva, then you risk your life if you don't have the ability to do that. You risk your physical life, and maybe even your astral life. You might have to die in 2 or 3 worlds in order to give that energy to the diva that's needed to complete that task. Because they follow law strictly. It's strictly according to the laws of karma, to the laws of God, in carrying out their duties. So I don't agree with some of the Wicca things that they say. They have it wrong.
What should you be mindful of when psychic impressions are present? Does one need to discern if the psychic impression is coming from out of oneself / soul or into, or is it really all one?
There's always psychic impressions around people. It's just whether you are aware or conscious of it. As long as you can, if you could pick up the psychic impression, just analyze it and move on. You don't need to know exactly where it came from. Eventually, if that knowledge is needed, it'll come to you. If it's coming from a negative source, then if you analyze it properly, you would know. So I don't think you really need to be concerned about that. Not at this stage.
Can one stop or halt the psychic flow of impressions? How to assess the building blocks of thought forms? Just answer that.
Stop the psychic impressions. Stop doing psychic things. If you're getting psychic impressions and you don't like them, then stop whatever you're doing that's causing them. And there's something that happened with a lot of people that dealt with psychic development. When the psychic impressions start coming, they don't want to expend the necessary energy in order to control the flow of those psychic impressions. So they usually try to do something to cut themselves off from it. You know.
What are the building blocks of thought forms?
What do they mean by that?
I guess how to assess them and what goes into creating a thought form?
A person thinking a thought form. Every time you think, you create a thought form. And you think thousands of times in the course of a day. Tens of thousands of times. So every time you think, you create a thought form. That's what makes up the cloudiness of your aura. Someone look at your aura and they see all these different colors. It's all the thoughts that you had and all the reactions that your body had to the environment. That's what create the thought forms. Emotions, movement through open space, and the thought and impressions, the conscious and subconscious thought impressions of you, that's what make up the thought forms within your aura. Your aura is made up of hundreds, maybe thousands of thought forms. So, I mean, that's what a thought form is.
What about projecting thought forms?
Same thing. I mean, the thought to project a thought form, you do it the same way you project energy. You know, when you're projecting energy from you, that's a thought form. Because what do? You give the energy what?
Direction and intention.
Yeah, purpose and direction. So that's a thought form you just sent out. So you have to impregnate that energy. You pull the energy down within you and then you impregnate it with your purpose and direction.
How can you become at peace with yourself and let go of past regrets to live a spiritual life?
I always go back to the 8 limbs of yoga inside of the Raja Yoga, or what they call the Sutras of Patanjali. There's a series of exercises that you can study and do in order to do that.
while they're thinking of more questions,
Hmm?
how much of your, hold on. Your karmic pattern as laid out in your, like your numerology, your astrology, your palmistry, and so forth, how much of that can you alter in a single life?
What you mean? In a single what?
Like, it's okay, like, the lines in your hands that tell you children, spouses, or whatever, things like that. How much of that can you, how much can you change of that?
It depends on you, the effort you put behind something. I mean, you can change your whole destiny in one life. It depends on you. There's no limit on that. I don't think. It depends on how much you're willing to give up and sacrifice. You know.
Would you be, in a sense, fighting against the tide? In
Hmm?
other words, would you be like fighting against the tide? In other words, life is pushing you one direction, but the more you fight against that, the more it pushes back?
No, the cosmic masters show us this every time one of them come to Earth. In one lifetime, they ascend, and they taking on the same material that we take on, right? And they battle through this, and they raise Kundalini, and they do their mission, and then they ascend in one lifetime. So the only thing that's holding us back is ourselves. Simple as that. You know, a worm is a worm because a worm believes that it's a worm. A pig is a pig because a pig believes that it's a pig. Simple as that. And that's what that means. Because in one lifetime, you have a cosmic being enter into the will of rebirth, you know, of this earth, and they go through the same experience we go through, you know, in the womb of a woman, you know, 9+ months. They're born, they're helpless, you know, they nurtured by their mother, and then their mother and their father, and they become adults, and they find their way to ascension and do a mission that everyone talks about for thousands of years. So only reason why we are not doing that is because we choose not to. And we believe that we are what we are and nothing more. So that's the only reason. So there's no limit in what you can do as far as excelling. You know, that's just it. There's no limit. That's why I was saying there's no destiny to your life, in a sense where, you know, you destined to do this, that, and the other. You know, because you can make a decision today, and they can change the next 100,000 lifetimes. You know, so it's all up to you.
So, in the Hall of Self-Judgment,
Hmm.
when we place certain limitations upon ourselves for the next incarnation,
Hmm.
that's basically saying this is how you will start, but it doesn't say how far you will go or where you will finish in that.
Right. So I mean, like I said, go back and study. That's why the great masters and the adepts of this earth and avatars of this earth throughout the centuries have logged down and have recorded the life of these great cosmic beings that came here. so that we can use their life as an example of how we can burn up negative karma. And it's essentially says the same thing over and over and over. They resist, they resist, they resist, they restrain themselves. They did the opposite of what was expected of them, and they always showed love towards everyone. It says the same thing over and over and over again. And by doing that, they burnt up this tremendous karma. At the same time, they worked on themselves personally and spiritually in order to ascend, in order to unlock the power of Kundalini so that they can use it on any level of consciousness needed. See? And same thing. So there's nothing saying that you must be one particular thing and that's it. If it is, it's you who's saying that. There's no supreme being saying that. No.
What is the best method to get children involved in spirituality and mystic knowledge studies?
That's a hard question because I don't know. Children have to show an interest. You have to kind of tell them little by little and hope that they prick their interest. You can force it on them, but then you can also, when you force it on them, it can repel them as well. I was forced, to be honest with you, and that's the honest truth. I'm not saying nothing negative against my parents, but they woke us up 5:30 in the morning. They forced us to pray. They forced us to do pranayama. They forced us to create this regimen in our lives, and it took with some of us, and it didn't take with most of us. So I don't believe in forcing, because what my parents didn't know, I had an interest since I was 2 or 3 years old. Because when I was 2 or 3 years old, I used to watch them face the east and hold their hands up, and I used to see the energy leave them. So I was always fascinated by that. But they didn't know that they didn't have to force me, but they did. So I don't believe in forcing. I believe that if it's there, if they're interested, they'll do it. If they're not, they won't. But I will always be open to them about religion, though. I would tell them the fallacies of it and what's good, what I feel is good, what I feel is wrong, what I think is fake, and so that they'll have an open mind.
How do you find out what you are supposed to fulfill in your lifetime and find your purpose?
I go back to Raja Yoga again. Raja Yoga helped you do that. Raja Yoga, in the practice of Raja Yoga, it helps you to define. I gave you all those practices. It helps you to define who you are and what your purpose is. You have to do a self-analysis on you. And you first have to learn to relax the body and to detach yourself from everything, and then examine who you are. And eventually you'll get to know yourself. And eventually you'll know where your greatest energy can be applied to. And that's, Raja Yoga is the best therapy if you practice it properly. There's a good series of lessons that goes into that. That really goes into that part of Raja Yoga. It's called Raja Yoga. The lessons, I think, this a series of lessons in Raja Yoga by Yogi Ramacharaka, written in the early 1900s. I think it's free on our website too, which is mysticknowledge.org.
Are there any specific foods you should eat that are spiritually good for you?
It's a lot of foods. So I mean, I would say just follow the. I think I sent the book out to everyone. It might be on the website. The Ayurveda Encyclopedia. They have different diets on there. I believe that people should be a vegetarian, although everyone can't be one. Um, but you know, I don't necessarily think we need to kill animals in order to eat. So. And when practicing pranayama, some of the Raja Yoga exercises, you need to sustain from meat. And if you can't sustain from most meat, at least sustain from red meat, pig. You might can eat a little poultry, but limit meat.
He means abstain.
Hmm?
No, I'm telling them you mean abstain.
Abstain, yeah.
Also, Shivananda lists, I think it's in their Kundalini and Raja Yoga book,
Mm-hmm.
foods by their quality.
Yeah,
By their
that's
gunas.
the same thing. That's Ayurveda.
Yeah.
That's the Ayurveda teachings. Talking about wind food and all of that. Yeah. Which that's a good book. That's a good psychic development book as far as giving you a foundation. The Kundalini Yoga book by Sivananda and the Pranayama by Sivananda as well. I think that's on our website. You can also go to the Divine Life Society website and get it as well.
How can you deal with people that pick on you and not let that negative energy affect you?
It's a mindset. You have to learn to detach. Don't allow people to get up under your skin. Realize that the people who do that, they just add a crossroads where they have to go through those negative experiences of putting someone else down or picking on someone, and learn that that's some type of mental illness that they're going through. So, but you can't allow yourself to get caught up into that.
During autumn every year, I feel more psychically tuned in, or sensitive, for lack of a better word, Would you say that I am creating this experience, or does something change in nature to cause this?
During autumn, what?
During autumn every year, so they feel more psychically tuned in or sensitive.
Psychics, a lot of psychic powers are seasonal for some reason. I don't know why it is. So I can give a guess, but I'd rather not. But a lot of psychic powers that, especially the basic, I'm talking about basic psychic powers, are seasonal.
Is it that way for everybody, or is it according to how you were born in this lifetime?
Repeat that, please.
Is it that same way for everybody, or is it according to the particular pattern that you're born into in this lifetime?
It seems to be that way for most people, or regional. It might be a regional thing too, depending on where you come from. For some reason, it's like that. When you start doing case studies or reading case studies or having a lot of people come to you, you'll notice that people, certain seasons, they become very psychic. Some people become very psychic during the winter time, other people during the autumn or fall time, other people become very sensitive during the summertime. So it just, for some reason, it's like that. Now, if they harness that ability and they begin to control that ability through yogic type methods, then they can enhance or bring about a balance of that across the year. Because what will happen, they will become very, they'll move from a basic level of psychic vision or hearing or whatever to a more medium level, and then to a more advanced level.
Say something? Should you avoid watching too much television? Yes. Specifically things that are not spiritually related.
I mean, if you don't have that type of control, yes. If you feel that that's a control you need to bring about yourself. I mean, for years, I know I did it. I went probably 12, 15 years without really watching TV, any type of television. I missed a lot of television because when people would have conversations, I didn't know what they was talking about. But I mean, now I can watch television, without having it, control me or be a leading thing in my life. But most people, that's their conversation all day long, and they don't take time to study or do anything else.
Awesome. What is... Okay, this is a fun one. What is your impression of advanced mystics of the East and their views of women being less than?
They not advanced if that's the case. They're not advanced. If you study most of the leading teachers of the East, they speak about women in the highest, in a very reverent way, because women are more closer to God than man, and that's in most teachings. You see that, although the majority doesn't practice that. So, but if you find a group that's demeaning women, they are not advanced, and I would tell you to run away from them as quick as you can.
Second. Where does mind go when we are in deep meditation with closed eyes and senses withdrawn?
First of all, mind is not in the body. Mind is all around you. Mind is the thing that holds matter together. And it depends on what type of meditation you're talking about, because I tell you, if you really study meditation, the goal of meditation is to dissolve consciousness. Okay, that's one of the goals of yoga. You gradually move from one yoga to the next, to the point where you can dissolve consciousness and allow the soul to be in full control and be bathed in the light of the spirit. That's the ultimate goal. So what does that mean? That means that right now, probably 1 to 2, maybe 3% of your Kundalini is active in the body, and the rest is dormant. Kundalini is actually the vehicle of consciousness for the soul in order to experience this basic form of life. Our spiritual goal is to actually take control over the Kundalini energy that's within the body that allow us to think, that allow us to move, to bat our eyes, to do everything we do in our daily life. Our goal is to latch on to this Kundalini power, push this Kundalini power back down to the base of the spine, use that Kundalini power as a key to unlock the dormant power of Kundalini, which is the greater portion of Kundalini. Then take all that Kundalini and push it up the spine, which they call Sushumna, and within this Sushumna is the Brahmanati, and push this up. And when you push all this Kundalini up, what's ever below that power of Kundalini becomes a void of consciousness. It goes into a conscious state of death. And as you move the Kundalini up to each level, to each chakra level, anything below that chakra level is void of consciousness and enter it into a state of conscious death. So that's true meditation. Anything outside of that is contemplation. So in the fifth limb of Raja Yoga, it tells us to withdraw our consciousness. To withdraw our senses. That is contemplation. That's concentration and contemplation. And in doing that, you do exactly that. You try to detach your consciousness from the sensory perception of the different sense organs within the body, in order to prepare for true meditation one day. So what you're doing is bringing the consciousness under your control. That's what you try to do. Most people think their consciousness has something to do with their senses and their sense organs, and it doesn't. It has nothing to do with that. The senses, Your sense organs and senses are only vehicles of expression for consciousness. It's only a tool. It's like a megaphone that amplifies your voice.
Okay, a follow-up to the women question. It says, they do speak reverently of women, but they also appear to demean them to a certain degree. And this I have learned from the books of supposed great adepts such as Ramakrishna.
The problem, was it Ramakrishna? That's the problem. The problem with that is that, and I teach always to separate culture from teachings. The teachings are the scriptures, and the scriptures, if it's true scriptures, then they supposed to put women in the highest level of respect. In fact, this earth, one day in the future, this earth will be ruled by females. This is a female earth, and when everyone come to their senses, then they will turn the leadership over to women and let them rule the world. And all mystics, if they're real true mystics, understand this and know this. And they realize also that women are closer to God because of their very nature. So I don't think Ramakrishna. I don't think that was Ramakrishna if they was reading a book or had him doing anything. I don't think that's so. You have to read. I read some books, so-called books that was so-called written by certain great masters, and it totally contradicts maybe 40 other books of that particular master. So somebody just put their name there, and so you have to be very careful. You have to discriminate on, when you're studying things. You have to learn to discriminate and know that, Ramakrishna lived in the 1800s. So a lot of people could have put his name on stuff since then, Yeah, the students come with their own version of stuff, and they put their master or teacher name on it when that's not the case. And one thing you can notice too, that most of these adepts or masters, that when they come and they lead, they leave a woman in charge. I want everybody to take notice of that. They usually leave a woman in charge. To me, that speaks volumes, Or they entrust everything to a woman. If they don't leave her in charge, they entrust everything to that woman.
What does it mean when you have a dream that you wake up in the middle of and cannot move your body?
I don't understand. Is that the dream itself? Or they physically wake up and cannot move the body?
They physically wake up and cannot move their body.
That means that part of their consciousness is still outside of the body. And maybe it wasn't a dream, maybe it was a projection. Maybe they was in a sleep state of projection, which every time you go to sleep, you are projecting. But it was a sleep state or semi-conscious state. Because every time you go to sleep at night, a part of your consciousness leave your body. So sometime when we come back, we're not completely in the body. And you find that you're conscious, but you haven't fully came back to the body in order to move the body.
How can you interpret dreams?
Like I said, I'm not into too much interpreting dreams. I said that the thing you should try to interpret is visions. Sometimes you have a dream. A dream is a past thought or something. It has something related to do with your current or past situation. Visions, you'll notice that visions are very real-like. You may think it's a dream when it's really a vision. In a dream, when you touch a table, you don't feel that table. You don't feel the cold, hot, warm, or texture of that table. In a vision, you touch a table and you feel the table. You feel the warmness, you feel the texture of the table. You know, that at that point, you might be having a vision or you might be having a projection. You know, you might be having some type of semi-conscious projection from the body. So those are the things I think you need to analyze. Dreams, I don't think you really need to analyze them.
Last week, I asked about my inability to see anything during projection. In my case, personal blockage may be the reason. Can you recommend a technique to help me get past this blockage? He says he uses pranayama.
Like I said before, he have to analyze why that's happening to him. See, some type of belief system is that he have is stopping him from seeing. So that have to be another self analyzing thing. I would say go take 3-4 months and do a self analysis of himself with the different yoga practices in Yoga Ramacharaka. It's on our website. I think it's called it's yoga is Raja Yoga. A series of lessons in Raja Yoga. And in there, in the first 3 or 4 chapters, it teaches you to self-analyze yourself and to gain control over your thoughts. Also, a good book to read also would be to help formulate your mental patterns. Is the book is also a book called 14 Lessons. It's a very basic book, easy read. It just slightly opened the door of mystic understanding for you. It's the 14 Lessons by Yogi Ramacharaka as well.
Are there any final questions? This will be the last class in our Mystic Practices and Techniques series. So please get your questions in now, specifically pertaining to the practices or techniques that were given out over the last 19 courses.
And when we get a chance, we'll write up a book or pamphlet on these classes.
first few classes, you gave over some techniques to develop the concentration,
Mm-hmm.
which was like, finding something you're interested in, making a list, and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
Could you go over those practices again?
Not today. It's on film, so I'm not prepared to do that today. I don't want to. I don't want to. I'd rather give it in full than go by my own memory. So,
Just trying to buy time for questions.
well, we passed an hour, aren't we?
Yeah, so I'm just trying to stall for more questions, in case anybody has more. What about the praying through different parts of the body technique?
Mm-hmm. What about it?
Could you go over that?
No. It takes a lot of time. I don't want to. I want to give it its due. Did I go over that in one class?
I don't think so.
You sure? I think I did.
The Mystic Practice class or a previous class?
Maybe previous classes. I thought I went over in the mystic practices too.
I don't remember that. We were talking about it many classes ago, but not in this series. I think that's it for now. If you had some type of injury near an area where a chakra is, does that affect the chakra or affect your aura?
Of course it did. Of course it does. It is. If you had an injury to the physical body, then it should show up in the aura. And I don't think it affect so much the flow of psychic energy through the psychic chakra, but it will cause a blockage in certain nadis. In a sense, if you can understand that. On one level of the chakras, there's tremendous amount of energy that's not accessible to us. Then there's other levels of energy that is acceptable to us. On those levels, it will cause a blockage.
I think that's good for today. All right, everyone, if you have any further questions, you can email them to us. We can either address them privately or in the next class before we move into the subject for that class. Go do a prayer now to close. The prayer that we use is it's called the New Lord's Prayers. It's given by the Master Jesus through Dr. George King and Their Society. You can find the prayer on our meetup site under the Files section. For those of you that are new, the prayer mudra was given out by Nehemiah in several classes, including this Mystic Practices series. The way that we do it is we stand facing the east with our body erect but relaxed, our hands down by our side. And we raise our hands with our palms facing outwards. And we visualize a white light coming down from the atmosphere through our head, out the palms of our hands, and out the heart center, which is about a few inches in front of the breastbone, as we recite the prayer. Once the prayer is complete, we dust our hands off, cut off the flow of energy, and say quietly to ourselves, "It is done," so that no one, if anyone's standing beside you, they cannot hear you say it. And that's how we say prayer. The technique we use for prayer is called dynamic prayer, in which we invoke a higher quality of energy by pouring our emotion into the prayer and charging it with the intention of sending out healing and upliftment to the world as a whole. For more detailed instructions, you can look back on previous videos and actually see Nehemiah demonstrate the technique. The New Lord's Prayer. O divine and wondrous Spirit, O everlasting Lord of hosts, send forth now through me thy great and lasting power. Allow me, O mighty God, the lasting privilege of radiating to all the world thy great love, so that those who suffer may be given the power and energy to rise above their weaknesses. Almighty God, in great humility do I ask you to send forth your power, to give to me this great lasting privilege of being a channel, so that my suffering brothers may be helped and guided and healed and lifted into thy light, so that they who know not may look up and in doing so receive through their higher selves your divine counsel. Almighty God, this day have you granted me a divine privilege. I ask you now to give to me the strength so that never again will I turn from my inner vision of you. O great peace, great peace, great peace. In praise of your greatness, O God, doth my soul sing. Grant it energy to sing on forever and forever. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next week.